What is a covenant? A covenant is a solemn agreement or contract made between two or more parties, often carrying significant moral, legal, or spiritual weight. The term originates from ancient traditions, where covenants were used to formalize agreements in various contexts, religious, political, or personal. Unlike casual promises, covenants are binding and require the involved parties to adhere to specific terms, often with consequences for breaking the agreement. Covenants can be conditional, where obligations are fulfilled only if certain conditions are met, or unconditional, where the agreement holds regardless of external circumstances. Historically, covenants were sealed with rituals, oaths, or symbolic acts to emphasize their gravity and enduring nature. Types of covenants. Religious or divine covenants. Religious texts often describe covenants as agreements between a deity and human beings. For example, the Abrahamic religions include covenants where God promises blessings or guidance in exchange for faith and obedience. Legal covenants. In modern legal terms, a covenant refers to clauses in contracts that obligate parties to perform or refrain from specific actions. For instance, a non-compete clause in an employment agreement is a form of a covenant. Personal covenants. On a personal level, a covenant can occur between individuals as a deeply binding promise, often accompanied by a sense of honor and trust. The covenant in the story of the lost man and the thief. To illustrate the concept of a covenant, let us explore the story of Elias, the lost man, and Kyle, the thief, as a detailed example. Their relationship and the agreement they form perfectly encapsulate the elements of a covenant, bringing clarity to its meaning and application. The context of the covenant. Elias, a traveler lost in the wilderness, and Kyle, a fugitive thief, find themselves in dire circumstances. Both are strangers with no reason to trust each other. Elias is desperate for guidance, while Kyle needs temporary sanctuary and supplies. Their situation is precarious. The wilderness is unforgiving, and Kyle's past endangers them both. This shared vulnerability sets the stage for their covenant. The terms of the covenant. Elias and Kyle make a solemn agreement. Elias will share his food and shelter. Kyle, who knows the terrain, will guide Elias out of the wilderness. They will protect each other from external threats, such as wild animals and bounty hunters. Any resources or spoils they find will be shared equally. These terms are specific, reciprocal, and necessary for their mutual survival. The covenant is not born from trust or friendship, but from practical necessity and shared goals. The binding nature of the covenant. The binding aspect of their agreement is evident in the mutual reliance it creates. Both men recognize that breaking the covenant could lead to dire consequences. If Elias refuses to share his supplies, Kyle might abandon him to the wilderness. If Kyle fails to guide Elias, he risks losing his temporary refuge and facing danger alone. Their covenant's strength lies in its enforceability through consequences rather than external authority. The wilderness itself becomes the arbiter of their pact. Symbolic acts and moral implications. Although no formal rituals mark their agreement, the act of sharing resources and setting out together serves as a symbolic sealing of their covenant. Each decision they make further reinforces their commitment. When Elias allows Kyle to stay despite his mistrust, he demonstrates a willingness to uphold the agreement. When Kale defends Elias from an attacking wolf, he fulfills his obligation to protect his companion. These acts deepen their bond, showing that a covenant is not merely words, but actions that sustain it. If you've made it this far, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, so you'll never miss a single update from us. Elements of a covenant in detail. Parties involved. A covenant requires at least two parties with distinct roles or responsibilities. In the story, Elias and Kale represent the two parties, each bringing something the other lacks. Elias provides supplies and safety, while Kale offers guidance and protection. Terms and obligations. Clearly defined terms are essential for a covenant. Ambiguity can lead to disputes or breaches. The terms in the story are explicit: shared resources, mutual protection, and guidance. Mutual benefit. Covenants are often built on mutual benefit, even if the benefits are unequal. Elias's survival depends on Kale's knowledge, while Kale's temporary safety depends on Elias's generosity. Both gain something critical from their agreement. Consequences of breach. The story demonstrates the implicit consequences of breaking their covenant. Betrayal would mean certain peril for both. This implicit understanding enforces adherence to their agreement. Moral and ethical dimensions. Covenants often carry moral weight, even in dire circumstances. The story explores moral dilemmas. Should Elias trust a thief? Should Kale risk his life for someone he just met? These questions highlight the ethical complexities of their covenant. Broader implications of the covenant. The story of Elias and Kale reflects broader truths about covenants in human relationships and societies. Trust and vulnerability. Covenants often emerge in contexts of vulnerability. Elias and Kale's agreement shows how trust can be forged through shared adversity, even when initial conditions are unfavorable. Transformation through commitment. The covenant transforms both characters. Elias, initially fearful and hesitant, becomes courageous and resourceful. Kale, defined by his past as a thief, begins to see himself as someone capable of honor and sacrifice. This transformation underscores the transformative power of covenants. The role of necessity. The covenant in the story is not born from idealism, but necessity. This reflects a fundamental truth. Many covenants arise not from choice, but from the practical need for cooperation. Enduring bonds. Though the covenant is temporary, its impact endures. Elias and Kale part ways changed by their shared journey, suggesting that even temporary covenants can leave lasting impressions. A covenant is far more than a simple promise or agreement. It is a profound and binding commitment that shapes the actions and fates of those involved. In the story of Elias and Kale, the covenant becomes a lifeline, a moral crucible, and a vehicle for transformation. Through their journey, we see how covenants can arise from necessity, evolve through shared experience, and leave an indelible mark on the human spirit. This narrative serves as a vivid example of how covenants function in real and symbolic terms, illustrating their power to forge trust, navigate challenges, and ultimately redefine relationships. Thank you for watching. If you love our content, show your support by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell. We've got so much more coming your way. See you in the next one.